Iran's protests in 2026 did not appear out of nowhere. Multiple outlets traced the current wave to 28 December 2025, when a sharp currency slide and price shocks triggered shop closures and strike activity in Tehran's Grand Bazaar, which then spread to other cities and turned into street demonstrations. Reporting in early January also highlighted the scale of the currency crisis. Al Jazeera cited the rial hitting about 1.42 million per US dollar and described it as a historic low, while Iran International reported the dollar reaching about 1.47 million rials on 5th January 2026. Those numbers matter because they translate into immediate pain. Import costs rise, prices jump, and merchants and workers feel trapped between collapsing purchasing power and customers who simply can't pay. In CNN's framing, the first spark wasn't an abstract geopolitical argument, but a concrete economic mechanism. The central bank ending a program that provided cheaper dollars for some importers, a move that reportedly pushed many shopkeepers to raise prices and close their shops, accelerating anger in the bazaars. From there, protests escalated beyond economics, with demonstrators in some places shifting toward open political demands, including calls for major change and broader civil rights. That escalation, economic trigger, then political expansion, is a familiar pattern in Iran's protest cycles, because people often start by demanding relief and end up asking who is responsible, who benefits, and who can be held accountable. When the state responded, one of the most verifiable facts on the ground was the communications shutdown. Amnesty International reported that Iranian authorities imposed an internet and telecommunications blackout on 8th January 2026 as protests intensified. Al Jazeera similarly cited net blocks describing a nationwide internet blackout, lasting at least 36 hours as unrest continued. Amnesty also warned that shutdowns can conceal abuses, and it reported that between 31st December 2025 and 3rd January 2026, at least 28 protesters and bystanders, including children, were killed in 13 cities across 8 provinces. That reported death toll, alongside the blackout, is part of why this wave is discussed not only as an economic crisis, but also as a human rights and governance crisis. To understand why events in 2026 can rapidly turn from prices to power, it helps to place them in a timeline that Iranians themselves argue over constantly. In 1906, the constitutional revolution produced the Persian constitution and established the Majlis, explicitly limiting the monarch's authority and introducing a parliamentary framework. That moment did not permanently solve Iran's struggles with sovereignty or stability, but it created an enduring benchmark, a belief that legitimate rule should be bound by law and institutions rather than only by force or charisma. Even today, debates over accountability and citizens' rights often echo this older constitutional language, whether the speaker is secular, religious, reformist, or oppositional. Another fixed point in the timeline is 1953. On 19th August 1953, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown in a coup orchestrated by the CIA and MI6, commonly associated with Operation Ajax, strengthening Mohammad Reza Shah and reshaping Iran's political trajectory. Britannica describes CIA-funded efforts that included fomenting unrest and using a media disinformation campaign, culminating in Mossadegh's removal and the Shah's return to greater power. This matters in 2026 because it is one of the reasons the Iranian state often treats mass protests as a national security issue linked to foreign influence. While many protesters point to it as proof that external actors have historically interfered, and that Iran's political system has long struggled to resolve legitimacy internally. From the 1960s through the 1970s, Iran's rapid development under Mohammad Reza Shah, boosted by oil revenue, and reforms associated with the White Revolution, expanded education and accelerated urbanization, but it also produced political repression and growing resentment. That mix contributed to the revolutionary crisis of the late 1970s, culminating in the 1979 revolution, and the creation of the Islamic Republic, which established a new constitutional order and redefined the relationship between religion, state power, and public life. The post-1979 period then included the Iran-Iraq War, deepening security-driven governance and shaping how authorities respond to dissent, especially under external pressure. In the decades that followed, Iran experienced repeated cycles of protest, repression, and partial opening, while sanctions and economic isolation repeatedly tightened and loosened, affecting currency stability and inflation. That background is why the late 2025 currency plunge could function as a match in a dry forest. The economy was already strained. Many people felt institutions were unresponsive, and social conflicts over personal autonomy and cultural enforcement had already raised tensions in earlier years. When trust is low, a sudden economic shock does not stay economic for long. because people quickly connect it to governance, corruption perceptions, and legitimacy. On 28 December 2025, unrest began around Tehran's bazaars as the currency crisis and price shocks hit daily commerce. Then protests spread nationally and broadened in demands. By early January 2026, outlets reported the exchange rate sliding to around 1.42 million rials per dollar, and then to around 1.47 million rials per dollar, signaling extreme instability. On 8 January 2026, Amnesty reported a nationwide internet and telecommunications blackout, alongside reports of killings across multiple cities and provinces in the first days of January. Those are the hard milestones of this wave: a start date, measurable currency figures, a documented blackout date, and reported casualty counts, followed by a continuing contest over what the protests mean and what outcomes are possible. All the sources mentioned in the video are in description.